Welcome back to AU Family Channel, and thank you so much for being here. It truly means the world to have you as one of our loyal listeners. If our stories have ever touched your heart, we are so grateful that you keep coming back to spend this time with us. So find somewhere comfortable, take a slow, deep breath, and let us begin today's story, together. The strongest person I have ever known coached our team from a wheelchair, and he did it during the season everyone quietly agreed was already lost. His name was Marcus, and before that year I did not admire him. I envied him. I wanted his spot, his shine, his place at the exact center of everything. Then one cold and rainy night changed his body forever, and slowly, painfully, it began to change my heart too. This is the story of a captain who lost the use of his legs and refused to lose anything else, and a selfish teammate who finally learned what real strength looks like. That selfish teammate was me, and Marcus taught me more than any trophy ever could. Marcus was the kind of player coaches build entire seasons around. He was our captain, our best scorer, and somehow the calmest person in every gym we ever walked into. When the game was tight and the clock was bleeding out, he wanted the ball. Not because he was arrogant, but because he genuinely believed he could carry us, and most nights he was right. He knew every one of our names, every one of our families, every small thing that made each of us tick. He remembered your birthday and your bad days. He was 17 years old and already the kind of leader most grown men never become. Everybody loved him. And that, honestly, was part of my problem. I was the other guard, the one who came off the bench when Marcus needed a rest. I was good, maybe very good, but I lived my whole basketball life inside his shadow. When I scored 20 points, people said the team looked sharp. When Marcus scored 12 and made one perfect pass, people said Marcus was a genius. I wanted what he had. I wanted the way people looked at him, the way the younger kids copied his walk, the way our coach said his name like it was the answer to every question. I told myself I worked harder than him. I told myself I deserved it more. I was wrong about almost all of it. So I competed with him in every way I could, even the small and ugly ways. In practice I guarded him like it was a championship every single day, throwing elbows, talking, trying to make him look ordinary. Off the court I kept a private scoreboard in my head, counting his points against mine, his praise against mine, always feeling like I was behind. Marcus never played that game back at me. He would beat me clean on a drive, then pull me up off the floor and tell me my defense was getting scary good. His kindness made me angrier, because it left me no reason to dislike him except my own jealousy. And jealousy, I have learned, is a very lonely thing to carry. That year was supposed to be our year. We had grown up together, this group of us, and now we were finally old enough and good enough to chase something real. The whole town was talking about our team. There were newspaper articles with Marcus in the middle of the photo and the rest of us blurred behind him. College scouts started showing up in our little gym, sitting in the top row with their notebooks. I ached for one of them to write down my name. I told myself that if I could just get out of Marcus's shadow for one season, my whole life might change. I was so focused on the shadow that I forgot to be grateful for the sun. I remember one night in particular, about 2 weeks before everything changed. We won a big game, and Marcus had been unreal, and afterward the reporters circled him while I stood by my locker mostly ignored. He caught my eye across the room, and instead of soaking up the attention, he broke away from them and came over to me. He told me that the second half only worked because of the way I had been running the floor, and he said it loud enough for the reporters to hear. He was trying to share his light with me. And I stood there resenting him for having so much light to share. That is the kind of small, sour person I was back then. The accident happened on an ordinary Tuesday, on a wet road, in the rain, in the most ordinary way disasters ever happen. Marcus was driving home from a late shift at his part-time job when a truck ran a red light and hit the driver's side of his car. He did not do anything wrong. He was not being reckless. He was just a 17-year-old boy driving home in the rain, and in the space of a single second the entire shape of his life was rewritten. I got the call around 11 that night from a teammate whose voice did not sound like his own. All he could say was that Marcus was in the hospital, and that it was bad, and to please come. The hospital waiting room that night is burned into my memory forever. Our whole team was there, still in the clothes we had thrown on, nobody talking, everybody just staring at the floor or the door. Marcus's mother came out once, her face wrecked, and told us he was alive but that the doctors were still working. I sat in a plastic chair for 6 hours and thought about every elbow I had thrown at him in practice, every point I had counted against him, every time I had wished I could take his place. Now I would have given anything to trade places with him for real, and I could not. Some things you cannot undo. You can only carry them. When the doctor finally spoke the words, the room went completely silent. Marcus had a severe spinal cord injury. He was going to live, and for that we were grateful beyond words, but he would very likely never walk again. The doctor kept talking, saying things about vertebrae and mobility and rehabilitation, but I stopped being able to hear. I kept thinking about Marcus on a fast break, that long stride of his, the way he seemed to hang in the air. And I understood, in a cold rush, that I would never see him do that again. The best player any of us had ever known was 17 years old, and he had just played the last game of his life without knowing it was the last. They let a few of us see him 2 days later. I almost did not go. I was scared, and I was ashamed, and part of me did not feel like I had earned the right to be at his bedside after the way I had treated him. But I went. He was smaller than I remembered, wrapped in tubes and machines, his legs still under the blanket, so still. I braced myself for anger, for despair, for a broken boy. Instead Marcus looked at me, and after a long moment, he smiled a tired smile and said he was glad I came. I fell apart right there in the doorway. He was the one in the bed, and he was comforting me. The weeks that followed were the darkest I had ever seen anyone go through, and I am not going to pretend they were not. There were days Marcus would not talk. Days his mother told us gently that it was not a good time to visit. He had lost basketball, which had been his whole identity, and he had lost the simple freedom of standing up and walking across a room. I heard later that there were nights he asked why it had happened to him, nights he wondered if he was even a person worth being anymore without the thing that made him special. I did not know how to help. None of us did. We just kept showing up, because he had always shown up for us. Meanwhile the season went on without him, and it was a disaster. Our coach named me captain, and I finally had the thing I had wanted, the spot at the center, the ball in my hands when the game was on the line. And it felt like ashes in my mouth. We lost, and lost, and lost again. Without Marcus we were a body without a heart. I would look at the empty spot on the bench where he used to sit and feel the whole weight of how much more he had been than just points. He had held us together in a way I had never even noticed, because I had been too busy resenting him to see it. I visited him one afternoon in the rehab center, expecting the same silence as before. But something was different. He had a notebook open on his lap, and when I looked closer I saw it was full of plays. Diagrams. Little arrows and circles, our offense broken down into pieces. He told me he had been watching film of our losses on his phone from the hospital bed. He told me exactly why we kept collapsing in the fourth quarter, exactly what I was doing wrong as a captain, exactly how to fix it. For 20 minutes the old Marcus was completely back, alive and sharp and certain. And I realized his mind, the best part of him, had not been touched at all. Before I left that day, I asked him, half joking and half desperate, if he would just come coach us himself since he clearly knew more than any of us. I expected him to wave it off. Instead he got very quiet, and he stared at those play diagrams for a long time. Then he asked me if I thought the guys would even want him around like this, in a chair, unable to demonstrate anything, unable to be who he used to be. And I understood that this was the real wound, deeper than his spine. He was afraid that the version of him that could not run and jump was a version nobody would want. I told him he was insane. I told him we needed him more than ever. A week later, Marcus rolled through the doors of our gym for the first time since the accident. I will never forget the sound the whole team made, this collective breath, half a gasp and half a cheer. He came in slowly, his hands on the wheels, his jaw set like he was walking into a fire. Some of the younger guys did not know where to look. Somebody started clapping, and then all of us were clapping, and Marcus ducked his head like he could not quite take it. Then he lifted his eyes, and there was that old captain fire in them, and he said, "All right, enough. We have got a lot of work to do and we are running out of time." That was the day everything started to turn, not just for the team, but inside of me. Marcus could not run a drill, so he taught us to run it for each other. He could not demonstrate a cut, so he described it so perfectly with his words that we could see it in the air. He parked his chair at the sideline and he saw everything, every lazy step, every missed rotation, every flicker of effort we tried to hide. He knew each of us so well that he could tell when we were tired, when we were faking, when we were scared. He was a better coach from that chair than most men are on two good legs. And we started, slowly, to win again. But it was not really about the winning, and Marcus was the first to say so. He would gather us at the end of practice, and instead of talking about the scoreboard, he talked about us. He asked the quiet kid on the end of the bench about his sick grandmother by name. He noticed when one of our starters was struggling at home and pulled him aside for a private word. He turned a basketball team into something closer to a family, and he did it from a wheelchair, in the middle of the hardest year of his own life. I kept waiting for the bitterness to leak out of him. It never did. He poured everything he had left into us, and somehow he seemed to grow larger doing it. There was one practice I think about more than any other. I was having a terrible day, missing everything, snapping at teammates, and finally I threw the ball off the wall in frustration and cursed. Marcus rolled over to me, slow and steady, and told everyone else to take a water break. Then he looked up at me from that chair, and he asked me what was really wrong. And it all just came pouring out of me. Everything. The jealousy. The scoreboard in my head. The elbows in practice. The nights I had wished I could take his place, and the unbearable guilt now that in some twisted way I had. I confessed all of it to the person I had wronged, standing over him while he sat. I expected him to be angry. I would have deserved it. Instead Marcus listened to every ugly word without flinching, and when I finally ran out of things to confess, he was quiet for a moment. Then he told me that he had always known. He had seen the jealousy for years, and he had understood it, because he had felt the same fear of not being enough that everybody feels. And then he said the thing that broke me open completely. He said the accident had taught him that a person is not their points, or their legs, or their spot in the newspaper photo. A person is how they treat the people around them. And he said he thought I was finally becoming someone worth following. I did not know a person could forgive like that. I had spent years quietly competing against him, throwing elbows, keeping score, wishing for his downfall in the smallest corners of my heart. And here he was, in the chair that my own jealous imagination could never have wished on him, telling me he believed in the man I could still become. Something in me that had been clenched tight for years just let go. I stopped competing with Marcus that day, and I started following him, really following him, for the first time. And it is a strange and beautiful thing, but the moment I stopped trying to be better than him was the moment I actually started becoming a better player, and a far better person. Under his coaching, our whole team changed shape. We stopped playing for ourselves and started playing for each other, and for him. When we broke the huddle, we did not shout the name of the town or the school. We shouted his name. Every rebound felt like it was for Marcus. Every dive on the floor for a loose ball felt like it was for Marcus. He had given us something bigger than a game plan. He had given us a reason. And the wild thing was that we became genuinely good, not because we were more talented than before, but because for the first time we were playing with our whole hearts. He had unlocked something in us that all our talent never could. I want to be honest about the hard parts too, because Marcus would want me to be. It was not a movie. There were nights he was exhausted and in pain and did not want to be seen. There was a stretch in the middle of the season when he almost stopped coming, when the weight of everything he had lost pressed down so hard that even he could not smile through it. His mother told me later that he had cried in the car in the parking lot more than once before wheeling himself inside to coach us. He was not made of stone. He hurt like anyone would hurt. His strength was never that he did not feel the pain. His strength was that he showed up anyway. The night I understood him fully, I found him alone in the gym after everyone had left. He was at the free throw line, or where the free throw line would be, just sitting there in the dark looking at the hoop. I sat down on the floor next to his chair and neither of us said anything for a long time. Finally he told me that he still dreamed about running. That he woke up some mornings and forgot, for one perfect second, before he remembered. And then he told me he had made a choice. He could spend the rest of his life mourning the body he lost, or he could build something good with the life he still had. And he had decided, every single day, to build. That was the lesson that rearranged everything inside me. Marcus had every reason in the world to disappear. To be bitter. To let the accident be the end of his story. Nobody would have blamed him. But he understood something most of us go our whole lives never learning. He understood that what happens to you is not the thing that defines you. The thing that defines you is what you decide to do next. He could not choose to walk again. But he could choose to lead, to love, to pour himself into other people, to become the heart of a team from the sideline of his own life. And in choosing that, he became stronger than he had ever been as our star. We had a good season in the end. I am not going to tell you we won some perfect storybook championship, because that is not the part that mattered, and Marcus would roll his eyes if I pretended it was. We made a deep run. We played the best basketball any of us had ever played. But the trophy was never the point, and every one of us knew it. The real victory was that a group of scared, selfish, ordinary kids had become a family. The real victory was a captain who could not stand, teaching us all how to rise. We did not win because we were the most talented team. We won at something far more important than a game. Years have passed now, and I still talk to Marcus almost every week. He went on to coach for real, first at our old high school and then higher, and he is one of the most respected coaches in our whole region. Players fight to play for him. Parents trust him with their kids. He rolls up and down the sideline in that chair and commands more respect than any coach standing on two legs, because everyone who spends 5 minutes with him understands they are in the presence of someone who was broken and chose to build anyway. He turned the worst night of his life into a lifetime of lifting other people up. That is not a consolation. That is a triumph. I think about who I was before that season, and I barely recognize him. I was so consumed with being the best that I had forgotten what being the best was even for. I thought greatness was points and photos and scouts writing your name in a notebook. Marcus showed me that greatness is what you give, not what you get. It is the birthday you remember and the teammate you lift off the floor and the kid on the bench you make feel seen. I chased the wrong thing for years while the real thing was sitting right next to me on the bench, wearing our jersey, remembering all of our names. I am so grateful I figured it out before it was too late. People ask me sometimes what the accident took from Marcus, and I understand why they ask. It took a great deal. It took his legs, his playing career, the future everyone had mapped out for him. I will never pretend those losses were small, because they were not. But if you ask what the accident revealed, that is a different question with a much bigger answer. It revealed a depth of character that basketball had only ever hinted at. It revealed a young man who could lose the thing he loved most and still choose, every single day, to be a source of light for everyone around him. The accident did not create that strength. It uncovered it. It had been in him the whole time. I keep a photograph on my wall from that season. It is not a photo of me scoring, or of any trophy. It is a photo of Marcus in his chair at the edge of the court, mid-sentence, one hand raised, and the entire team leaning in around him, hanging on his every word. You can see it on all of our faces, this total devotion, this love. That is what leadership actually looks like. Not the person with the ball in the final second. The person everyone leans toward when they need to know what to do next. Marcus was more of a captain in that chair than he had ever been in his uniform, and he had been an incredible captain in his uniform. If you are going through something right now that feels like it has taken your future away from you, I want you to hear this, because Marcus taught it to me and it is the truest thing I know. Your circumstances do not get the final word on your greatness. Your response does. There will be things in this life you cannot choose. Accidents. Losses. Doors that slam shut and never reopen. You do not always get to choose what happens to you. But you always get to choose who you become in answer to it. That choice is the one thing no accident and no truck on a rainy road can ever take away from you. It belongs to you, and only you. Marcus could have been a cautionary tale, a sad story people told about the star who lost everything. Instead he became a legend, not for what he did on the court, but for what he did after he could never step on it again. He took the single worst thing that ever happened to him and he turned it into the reason hundreds of kids now have a coach who believes in them. He did not win by getting his old life back. He won by refusing to let the loss of it make him small. That is a kind of strength that has nothing to do with muscles or legs or vertical leap. It is the strength of the human spirit deciding it will not be defeated. I became the leader I am today, in my work and in my family, because of a boy in a wheelchair who forgave me for envying him and then taught me how to live. Every time I am tempted to feel sorry for myself over some setback, I think of Marcus wheeling himself into that parking lot, wiping his eyes, and rolling into poor love into a team that could not give him back what he had lost. If he could do that, I can face whatever small thing is in front of me. He raised the ceiling on what I believed a person was capable of, and I have spent my whole life since trying to live up to the standard he set from a chair. So here is what I have learned, and it is the whole reason I wanted to tell you this story. We spend so much of our lives believing that our worth is tied to our abilities, our achievements, the things we can do and win and hold. But abilities can be taken in a single second on a rainy road. Achievements fade. And if that is where you build your whole sense of who you are, then a single accident can erase you. Marcus taught me to build my worth somewhere sturdier, on how I love, how I show up, how I respond when life takes something precious from me. That foundation cannot be taken. Not by any accident. Not by anything. The strongest man I have ever known could not stand up, and he lifted an entire team, and then he lifted an entire community, and somewhere in there he lifted me. He never got to run again in this life. But I have watched him move more people than anyone I have ever met. He proved, in front of all of us, that the size of your body has nothing to do with the size of your heart, and that being knocked down, even permanently, is not the same as being defeated. Marcus lost the use of his legs the year I finally learned how to stand. And I will spend the rest of my life grateful that I got to be on his team. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this. Your circumstances do not define your greatness. Your response to them does. You will not always get to choose what happens to you in this life, but you will always get to choose who you become because of it, and that choice is where all your real strength lies. Marcus could not choose to walk. He chose to lead, to love, and to rise anyway, and in doing so he became more than he ever was before. Whatever has knocked you down, you are not finished. The next move is still yours. And the person you decide to be from here is the truest measure of who you really are. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. It genuinely means the world to me that you are here and that you stayed. If Marcus's story moved you the way it moved me, please give this video a like and subscribe to AU Family Channel, where a brand new story is waiting for you every single week. And remember, your circumstances do not define your greatness. Your response does. So whatever life has taken from you, decide today to build something good with what remains, and rise. I am so glad we got to share this one together, and I will see you in the next one.